We think that there are so many different ways that you can live ethically and sustainably.
Building a community, it takes time.
But the numbers really spoke for themselves. We had to quickly pivot.
Don't guilt yourself, don't guilt anyone. Start with where you are and what your reality in the current situation is.
Oftentimes, you're building community when you don't even realize.
Only post quality content that your community will engage with.
Figure out how your community likes to communicate with you. If you're not in the habit of sharing actionable things for people to do, definitely get into that.
Hello and welcome for another episode of our Spark Live Speaker Series. I'm Courtney Thomas, Social Media Manager for Adobe Spark, and I have two very special guests with us here today. If you are watching, I promise you this is a rare opportunity where you are meeting two business owners that you will get to say, I knew them when. So I would like to introduce to you founders, the CEO and the Chief Marketing Officer of Brightly, Laura Wittick and Lisa Moiseva. Thank you for joining us today.
Yay.
Hey, Spark. Hey, guys.
Hey. And let me just say, I'm so excited to have you all because Brightly is doing extremely well. Brightly is an eco-conscious media platform for discovery, for community building, for content. They feature brands and products that are ethically and sustainably created around the world. They just joined Snap, and if you're not familiar with Snap Inc., that's the parent company of Snapchat, which we all know and love very well, but they were part of the Accelerator program for 2020. They were named by TechCrunch the Conscious Consumer's Answer to Refinery 29. And they are currently featured by Apple as the #1 podcast for conscious consumers and the #1 podcast for leisure. Yeah. Congratulations, ladies. You're doing amazing.
That's a pretty impressive introduction, I have to say.
You did it. I'm just reading your accomplishments.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for that intro. It's awesome. I think some folks in the group know, I actually, most recently before I founded Brightly, I was a Spark product manager working on Spark Page. So this is a group that I am very familiar with. And, hey, Malcolm. So funny. We're thrilled to be here to talk a little bit about building online communities. Brightly, if you're not familiar, so you can find us at brightly.eco, like eco-friendly. We're a new platform for all things conscious consumerism. So what that means is we inspire people to live ethically and sustainably every day by doing small actions. So whether that is cutting down on your plastic waste or maybe figuring out how to use up everything in your fridge, we think that there are so many different ways that you can live ethically and sustainably. And the first step is to just get started. Like just get started, take small steps every day. We are with you on this journey. So we like to operate from a place of positivity and of abundance. And so this is something Lisa and I have used to help, of course, grow the impact of Brightly and, reduce climate change and carbon emissions in the process. But it's also something that we're using to help provide value right now during the time of COVID-19. We have all, everyone listening to this and around the world, of course, has been impacted, unfortunately, by COVID-19. So one of the things that we've been doing is trying to think through how do we show up authentically for our community and help them right now in their time of need.
Amazing. So if anyone, let me just lay out the ground rules real quick. If you have any questions, go ahead and send those in. I'll be moderating and I'll ask them live so you can get your answer live. And so why don't we jump right in? And how have you two, or even as Brightly, how have you been creatively adapting since we've been put into quarantine?
Laura, I'll talk about coffee chats, and Laura, jump in whenever you want. With Brightly, we are part of the Snapchat Accelerator, even though everything is online now. But definitely had to adapt a lot our business. A big part of our strategy pre-COVID-19 was actually real life events, and we were really excited to meet our community in person. But these days, our IRL events are now in the form of virtual changemaker coffee chats, which we host on Zoom. And I think we've hosted 5 so far. And this was basically our response to COVID-19 and our initiative to keep connecting with our community, even in this new form, and also finding other ways how we can help each other out. So it was very organic, authentic initiative. And now it's taking more of a form of conversation with experts, some people that we've had previously on Good Together podcast, some not, but it's more topical. And yeah, it's just a more kind of interactive way to connect with our community and keep the conversation, the important conversations about sustainability going even during this crisis.
For sure. And we, one thing I want to mention is, before all of the COVID-19 stuff started escalating, Lisa and I were planning on doing a lot of in-person events. And when we do our little presentation here in a second about community building, we want to, mention that we had a big in-person perspective on this too. And then of course, COVID-19 happened. So we had to quickly pivot and think through how do we build more of these in-person type experiences online, because community can be accomplished in many different places, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but it was definitely something where we had this great live event plan with all of our brand partners. It was going to be a clothing swap. We were super excited about it. And then, all of the collective stuff hit the fan. I'll keep you in touch. Rated.
And did you all transfer the events that you already had planned in person? Did you just try to transfer those online, or did you pivot completely to what the online space needed?
We pivoted. We wanted to listen, and Lisa is of course the expert. Lisa is such an amazing community builder, and is always talking to our customers and our users. And we just started, we also have an ambassador program where we just will quickly poll our super fans and ambassadors to see what they're thinking. And what we found was something like a clothing swap wouldn't really translate that well to a Zoom event. So we wanted to just show up and be there for our community however they needed us.
Yes, that's so important. I was just in a virtual chat yesterday on best practices for virtual events. And that was one thing that the host said was, don't just move your event online because you were meaning to have an event live, because it's just a shift in space and there's such a shift in need. So great job, you guys. You're just continuing on the up and up. Talk to me a little bit more about how Brightly is responding to conscious living during coronavirus.
Laura, you want to take that one?
Sure. This is always the fun time too. So since Lisa and I are podcast hosts, we always kind of look at each other like, you can answer that one.
Yeah,
so essentially what we did, like everyone, like every business owner, we had a roadmap, we had a content calendar, we had stuff already planned out. And then when COVID-19 happened, we decided to think through how we could add a COVID-19 lens to some of the advice that we were offering. So for instance, we had most recently on our podcast a guest named Sophie Egan. She's a New York Times author, and she created a book called Conscious Eating. And so we wanted to bring her on the podcast to share all of her tips anyway. But given the fact that we are now facing an unprecedented time in the world where people aren't able to go to the grocery all the time, and they're not used to maybe cooking all of their meals, we said, Sophie, would you mind sharing what we called Corona conscious eating tips to help people, for instance, stretch their pantries, or how to make sure that how to read what is it called, the use by date. There's so many fascinating things there where it's there's actually no reason for a lot of those dates. So anyway,
that's good to know. That's a good tip.
Yeah.
People don't know that.
Well, it's not that there's no reason, it's that there's no standardized reason. So some places will use it for peak freshness. Other places will use it for when they think it will actually go bad. And so since there's no standard, it's kind of difficult to understand what it actually means. So yeah, her advice, of course, just the old fashioned advice, just smell it, make sure that you that you're familiar with it, but don't necessarily just go through and cleanse your fridge and pitch everything just because it says it's not good anymore.
That's good advice in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to know that because I noticed as we headed into quarantine, it seemed like all of the eco-conscious initiatives that we as a generation had tried to uphold, like reusable water bottles, reusable grocery bags, like those went out the window. Like no one can bag our groceries anymore for us if we are using reusable bags. So the incentive has kind of gone away. And of course, water bottles just flew off the shelves, which there was no actual reason for because running water was not an issue, thank God, during this crisis. But it makes you wonder, like, well, then where did all of that waste go? I hope everyone put it in recycle bins, but I don't know. So yeah, you guys have the answers for all of that.
We tried.
For sure. For sure. I mean, we try, right? I mean, so one of the things that we do on the podcast is we do a ton of research. So Lisa and I are very curious people. If we don't know the answer to something, we will grab an expert or we will become experts ourselves by doing a ton of research. And Lisa, do you want to talk a little bit about like the trends that we're seeing, to the point Courtney just brought up around like maybe the extra waste that's being generated and kind of what people can do about it?
Yeah, and again, not to promote our podcast all the time, but like with podcasts and even with coffee chats, we had and again, most of the conversations right now, and I think this is the reality of social media, of news right now. It's every conversation tends to skew towards COVID-19. It's like, how can you celebrate Earth Day, but during COVID-19, it's a little different. Yeah. How do you start with going like with your zero waste journey, but during COVID-19, given the fact that you cannot take your grocery bag into the store anymore? And one thing that we always talk about during our podcast and any conversations with our community, like don't guilt yourself, don't guilt anyone, and start with where you are and what your reality in the current situation is. Even across the country, the reality, even pre-COVID-19, is different. Some states and counties and cities don't have recycling facilities like we have in California. And things like that. But yeah, in terms of trends, one of my favorite exciting trends is like everyone wants to learn how to grow their own food as well. So gardening is definitely something we will be talking. We're already talking on our platform, and we will have an exciting co-host interview in our podcast coming up soon. And
Lisa is a crazy plant lady too, I have to say. Like she's got the green thumb. I cannot keep plants alive. I have a few that they're doing okay, but she's over here with like a full-on greenhouse.
Yeah, I bought a greenhouse. Yeah, it's a whole
so funny. So like everyone has their own way of doing things, right? Like if you don't have a green thumb, that's fine. Like maybe go support your neighbor who does.
Yes. Go get some tips.
Yeah.
Amazing. So it sounds like, the COVID crisis happened. You all were in the middle of one community building strategy. And then of course, now you've had to pivot to a virtual community building. So talk to us. And then of course, this is probably a great time for you to hop into your presentation for how to build virtual communities.
Sure. Let me share my screen. Can I share my screen? I don't know. Let me try.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm going to hide myself away. I'll still be here, but it'll be you two.
I don't know.
Do you see it down there?
1 second. Yep. I think I should. Yeah. Ooh, can you do it, Laura? I think I have to like quit or something.
Okay. Yeah, I can do it.
I'll talk through and while you are opening the screen. Yeah, I don't know why. Okay, cool. Awesome. So we can skip through the intro slides since we already talked about Brightly, and we'll jump into like, as I call it, community building 101.
Yep.
So we are trying, I think as any business, you want to try and meet your community where they are. So, and of course, communities all over the place, especially social media, real life events, email, customer service, podcasts. Podcasts are definitely on the rise. I don't know if you guys know, but there is more than 1 million podcasts in the US alone right now. So podcasts are definitely the place to be, no matter what business you are, even though if you don't have a business. Yeah.
And I mean, I think the point of this slide really is just oftentimes you're building community when you don't even realize. So, specifically I talk about email, like when you're doing emails with your customers or users, that's an opportunity to come in and be really authentic and use some of the techniques that we're about to teach you. But I think a common misconception is when you hear the word community, you think, oh, I have to have a private Facebook group, or, oh, I have to have, I don't know, 100,000 followers on Instagram. It's really not the case. Yeah.
Yeah, so community is about your customer audience, whoever you are talking to, whoever you're trying to sell to, and it's all about them, what they are interested in, not what your brand is about, not about your personal interest. So it's important for me, like I always like to tell the ethical founders I talk to, start with your customer, figure out who she is, where she's hanging out in terms of social platforms or in real life outside of COVID-19. What are her interests besides your product or service that you're selling to? And talk to her in her own language. So this is the kind of the most important first step in terms of community building. Yeah, in terms of social media, and I think we are kind of getting more and more used to social media. I mean, it's been whatever, more than 10 years since Facebook started, right? Or how many years? No, more than 15 years, right?
Yeah,
but
probably. I don't actually know, but
2004, 2006 it started. But yeah, social media is all about engagement, entertaining, right? So this is why, like, whenever you engage with your community in any social media platform, it's more about engaging, entertaining posts. So 80% entertaining engagement posts, and 20% it's about you, your brand, whatever you're selling to, discounts you want to offer. And yeah, so as you start in your community, again, no matter what platform it is, start selling and like promoting hardcore your product only after you've built a high engagement community. This is very important because if it's extremely difficult. It's not easy to build in a high engaged community. It does take work and it does take time, but it does take consistent, engaging posts, conversations in the community to start with, and only then you should start selling and promoting your products. Otherwise, it's just your community is going to fall flat, unfortunately. And consistency is extremely important in terms of community building. No matter where you're building it. If it's email, set expectations with your community. Every Thursday morning, you can expect an email from us every week, every Thursday morning. It doesn't, especially if you're like very small brand, like even like Brightly, 2 people, 1 person brand, it doesn't mean that you have to be posting like 10 times a day or whatever, every single day. Set expectations, make sure that you meet them and that you're consistent, and of course, only post quality content that your community will engage with and is interested in.
Yeah, and I have to jump in and say that this is one of the hardest things to follow, is being consistent. I think I talk to a lot of people who, you do your content plan, you're ready to go. Maybe you do it consistently for a month or 2, and then you might not be seeing the results you want, or even if you are, you might kind of be second guessing the content that you're putting out. Consistency, again, is key. And it definitely can help enforce a process. And of course, like we just mentioned this, but quality over quantity, right? I think if it's much better to put out 3 consistently good pieces of content a week than it is to like put a bunch of content out every single day. You're going to basically be conditioning your community to expecting things at a certain time because you're being consistent, and then you want to make sure that you're enforcing that quality. The one thing I will share is that you do also want to be making sure that you have your finger on the pulse of what's doing well across your community and what's doing well across social in general. So one example is on Instagram right now. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but Instagram is full of memes and silliness and raw content, much more so than it was like that 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And some of this is COVID. I think people are looking for lighter content. They're getting slammed with all this negative stuff all the time. So there's that happening, but it also was a trend that we saw even before COVID. And so in a Brightly's example, we have had an Instagram channel for quite a while now. It even predates our platform, but it was something that we used to test different messaging. And, we had a really tight hold over the brand voice and the graphics and the way it looked. And then, Lisa joined the team and she noticed that memes are doing really well. And I was like, I don't know, like, it just doesn't really look that good on the feed. Like the grid looks kind of weird. I don't love it. And like, we definitely like butted heads on that a little bit, and I'm sure everyone who's got business partners out there shaking their head, every once in a while, you'll get into one of these. But the numbers really spoke for themselves. Like, Lisa was seeing this high engagement. We put it in ours. And, that's something that's really important to be aware of. And there's ways that you can make memes a little bit more on brand. Like you can try and use your fonts, you can try and use your brand colors to make them look a little bit more like they're part of your feed. But don't be afraid of those memes. And like my Spark fam knows me personally, I love memes. Like I was the meme queen. But yeah, sometimes it's hard to get there with your business.
Yeah, and I'll get into more details maybe in terms of type of content for different platforms. But yeah, this is kind of sounds silly, but in order to get engagement on any platform, ask simple questions, especially on social media. Like I call it like yay or nay type of post, because make it as easy as possible for people to engage with you, so that they literally only have to type 3-letter word, right? Yay or nay, or like which I don't know, which image you like the most, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's kind of silly, but this is one way to, again, make sure community is engaging with you, and again, make sure the algorithm are seeing that engagement and pushing your content to more people.
That's come in.
Uh-huh.
Emily Corbin, who you guys all may know from Insiders. She's asking, are there any things you discovered that are doing well during COVID times that you want to continue? Maybe content-wise, something that surprised you?
Well, we are seeing growth. I mean, so one of the nice things for us has been, a lot of content focused businesses like ourselves, but even businesses who are just choosing to put more content out there in general right now are seeing positive growth because people are inside, they are consuming more content. And the really core piece of Brightly's value is that we provide actionable tips for people. And I do think just that core inherent utility that we operate with every day is speaking really well to people right now. So if you're not in the habit of sharing actionable things for people to do, definitely get into that, because I think, the way our community, and actually, I don't even think we have a slide about this, but it's important to note, like, figure out how your community likes to communicate with you. Yeah. So are they looking for you to be the thought leader? Usually they are, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're looking for you to be like their BFF in crime, or maybe there's just so many different ways to attack this. But what we noticed was people were engaging with us from a question and answer format. So people email us and say, we got an email a while back from someone who said, I need to buy a new cell phone. How do I buy an ethically created cell phone? And Lisa and I personally were like, wow, we've never thought about that. And of course, that prompted us to go do our research that we're really well known for. But figure out how people are looking to engage with you and then craft your content around that.
Smart.
And also just be aware what people care about right now. I mean, we all have been figuring out kind of like a balance of what to communicate, how to communicate with our community during COVID-19. And just think about what people are thinking about right now. Everybody's stuck at home. Everybody is doing different DIY projects. So people are looking to, entertain their kids in the house, entertain themselves without getting out, socializing. Gardening is definitely one of the trends we're seeing, and of course cooking. And yeah, again, just think about what people are thinking of right now given the new reality. Yep. The previous slide was about talking to your customers, and like especially in the beginning of building your community, you have to literally reply to every single comment. This is extremely important. This is time consuming. There's no way to growth hack it, but this is if you don't do it, community was not going to grow, because you need to train your community members, your customers, that you are actually reading their comments, you care what they think about, and if they ask a question in your community, they will get an answer. Otherwise, if they don't get a response, they won't. They're not going to post in the future.
Exactly. So Lisa, we've got like 5 minutes left. I'm going to kind of just skip through some of these, but I mean, points that we've already kind of made, but like making sure that community is a long-term brand building strategy for your business. You need to invest in this, even if it's just you. So like when we say invest, it could be money, but it could also just be time. Again, it's not something that you will necessarily see a ton of really quick growth in, but what you want to do is seed some super fans, even if you've got just a handful of them, because then they're going to go out and be your loudspeakers and be people who are really excited about. This one is specific to Facebook group owners, Lisa. But this is just, pretty good general best practice is make sure you're capturing emails or figuring out a way to keep in touch with your community, even when they're on a different platform.
Exactly.
So, it's really good to make sure that you own your community. So, grab their emails, make sure that they're a part of your general CRM, because, again, the best way to convert people is to have their direct information.
Yeah, exactly. Especially during COVID-19, especially for like physical brick and mortar store businesses, if they did not, thankfully through technology, hopefully they have at least emails of their customers, but they don't think about a store. People came into your store and maybe they didn't buy anything, but they were interested in you, but you have no way to connect with them afterwards. So make sure you always have a second or third way to connect with your followers from different platforms.
For sure. And I think we can kind of end on this slide because we're about at time, but this is just an example of some of the conversation that goes on in our community. And this goes back to what we were saying earlier around seeing how people are interacting with us. So on the right-hand side, you can see two examples of people asking questions. So like, somebody's like, hey, I'm working to get into an eco-friendly lifestyle. And one of the changes I want to make is ditching my makeup remover towelettes. Like, does anyone have suggestions here? And then there's like 31 comments. Like people love to like do these question and answers with us. And then on the left-hand side, we have another, one of our moderators who is super engaged, one of our super fans. Her name's Laura. She's amazing. But she noticed that people were asking more about stretching their pantries like we talked about earlier. So she shared a really quick and easy bread recipe. And again, like this is just, finding what your community wants you to say, or wants you to lead them down which path, and just meet them where they're at. Cause I think that's super important.
Yeah, and one last thing I want to add, why you're seeing so many comments in response to a question about the makeup towelette, face wash, or whatever. People also want to feel like they're experts, so empower them to be experts and give them the voice. This is another thing that I've been seeing in our group, and in general, it's always true.
Yeah. So that is just a really quick community building crash course from us. Again, if you're interested in connecting with the Brightly community, our podcast is called Good Together. You can search for it anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can find us at brightly.eco online, like eco-friendly. And then we've got a Facebook group. Just search for Good Together and you'll find our Facebook group.
Join. Here, let's see if I can come back to give you guys a good outro.
Yeah.
Am I back? Do you see me?
Yeah. Oh, wait, let me stop the sharing. Hold on one second.
Yep.
Or what? There we go.
Amazing. So if anyone has any questions, now is that time. Otherwise, we are coming right up against time. These things go by so fast, didn't I tell you?
Yeah.
Yes.
100%. I mean, but that was a great presentation. I love so many parts about it, especially about responding to people right away. Don't expect quick results. You're building a community. It takes time. And a lot of people give up after about a week where they're like, my post hasn't gone viral yet? What?
Yeah.
Then clearly this isn't. And it's you got to be in it for the long game. And you truly are building those relationships and those connections with people. And the best ones always do take time.
Yep.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, think about all of I always like to talk with Laura about like most successful brands. Like think about like Glossier. She started as a community, So yeah, most successful brands, they care about their customers and their community, truly, not just like on paper. We have a Facebook.
Exactly. And it comes out of a need too. It's not just I want to be on social. I want visibility. It's really truly answering the question of what do you need? If you are part of my community, how can I help you and what do you need? Or let's just talk about it. Like
Exactly.
Life story, and let's talk about it.
For sure.
Amazing. So no questions are coming in now, but I have a feeling we're going to have some on the back end. So stay tuned for that. If you want to share any resources, Laura and Lisa, feel free to leave them in the comment section.
Sure.
Excellent. And then we'll see you all on Tuesday for our next and final speaker series live of April. We have more coming up in May too.
All right. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you both so much for coming on. Good luck with everything. I have all the faith in the world that you all are, I feel like you guys are already blowing up. It's happening. I claim it. I know these things. I must say, I had a podcast called Next Big Thing, and every single person on there has blown up. So I will say I have an eye for these things, and I'm claiming it for you too. I already know that.
Well, thank you. We're going to manifest that, right?
Okay. All right. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.